All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
I'm excited to be here.
Today, we're diving into the world of educational partnerships,
Yeah.
particularly the ones that happen between schools and universities.
hmm
We're going to be looking at a chapter from the book, The Future of Health, Well-Being, and Physical Education.
Okay.
And it's a really cool look at a project called Best Start, which is all about a collaborative approach to lifelong health and wellness.
Sounds interesting.
And what's really cool about this is it's not just theoretical. We actually get to see how these partnerships can actually change the future of education.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
This Best Start project, it actually shows a bigger change that's happening in education right now.
Oh, okay.
Moving away from those, traditional ways of doing things, like where
Mhm.
institutions were kind of separate from each other,
Right.
towards a model that really focuses on collaboration and sharing resources. It's like the whole system is kind of like waking up and realizing that the future of learning depends on getting rid of those walls between everybody.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like with everyone talking about mega trends and things like that.
Okay, makes
And
sense.
how we need more creative and interconnected approaches to solving problems.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, can you give our listener a picture of what Best Start actually looks like in action?
Yeah.
Like what makes it so special?
Okay, so picture this. A program where universities and schools aren't just, working side by side,
Mm-hmm.
but they're actually like truly blending their expertise together.
Oh, wow.
That's Best Start, basically.
Yeah.
It's creating what they call in the chapter a hybrid space.
Hybrid space.
Yeah, think of it like a really dynamic learning environment where, the theoretical knowledge from the university
Mm-hmm.
mixes right in with the real world experience of being in an actual classroom.
So it's like flipping the script on the old way of teaching teachers.
Yeah.
Instead of that, learn the theory and then try to apply it later approach.
Mhm.
Best Start is weaving the theory and practice together right from the start.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, though, besides this hybrid space idea, what are the things that really make these partnerships work?
Okay, well, the chapter mentions research from Darling Hammond, and they outline three key ingredients.
Okay.
The first one is coherence and integration.
Okay.
And this isn't just about, adding some field experience hours onto a regular teacher education program.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more about really interweaving the theory and practice through
Right.
the whole curriculum so that the teachers of the future are like constantly making those connections.
So it's not just checking boxes, but really creating a mindset
Right.
where the classroom becomes like a living lab.
Yes.
Where learning is happening on all these different levels.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the other two elements?
Okay, so the second key ingredient is extensive and well-supervised clinical experience.
Mm-hmm.
So new teachers need a lot of time in real classrooms.
Yeah,
And I'm not just talking about, sitting in the back and observing.
right.
They need to be actually involved, applying what they've learned,
Mm-hmm.
getting their hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah,
And this all needs to happen with the help of, experienced mentor teachers
right.
who can give feedback and support.
It's like that idea of deliberate practice,
Yeah.
how you really master something
Yeah.
by pushing past your comfort zone,
Yeah,
but in a safe and supportive environment.
exactly. Yeah.
It seems like Best Start really focuses on that.
Yeah, they do. And the third really important part is about building new relationships.
Okay.
And this isn't just about the logistics and scheduling between universities and schools. It's about building real, trust-based relationships between the faculty, the mentor teachers, and the new teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having a shared purpose
Yeah.
and a commitment to helping students succeed.
It sounds like Best Start is really doing a great job with all three of these things.
They are.
Not just the structure of the program,
Yep.
but also the culture and the relationships they're building.
Yep.
Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. And one thing that makes Best Start really stand out is its focus on a strength-based approach.
Strengths-based approach. I was
Mhm.
going to ask you to explain that a bit more, actually.
Sure.
When I hear strength-based, I think of positive psychology and focusing on what people are good at.
hmm
But how does that apply to training new teachers?
Yeah, that's a great connection. In Best Start, this strengths-based approach is really aligned with the principles of health promotion
Mm-hmm.
and what's called a salutogenic perspective.
Yeah.
So instead of just focusing on like the absence of disease or problems,
Right.
they kind of flip the script and emphasize building well-being and resilience.
That's interesting. So it's not just teaching these future educators how to manage behavior in the classroom or how to deal with tough situations.
Hmm.
It's about giving them the tools to create learning environments where students can thrive,
Yeah,
not just survive.
exactly. And one of the main ways they do this is by focusing on the concept of health literacy.
Now, health literacy is a buzzword these days,
Hmm.
but I think it's worth taking a moment to really define it
Yeah.
because it's more than just knowing a few health facts, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so much more than just having little bits of information.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having the skills and the confidence to actually, navigate the complex world of health
Right.
and make decisions that are good for you.
It's a kind of empowerment.
Yeah.
It's not just about knowing the answers. It's
Mhm.
about knowing what questions to ask,
Yeah.
how to find good information,
Right.
and how to look at all the messages we're bombarded with every day and really think about them.
Exactly. And the chapter actually breaks down health literacy into 3 different dimensions:
Yeah?
functional, interactive, and critical.
Okay.
And each one builds on the one before it.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with functional health literacy. What does that involve?
So functional health literacy is like having the basic skills to understand basic health information.
Okay.
Think about things like reading a nutrition label,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what your doctor tells you,
Right.
or following the directions on your prescription bottle.
So, like, the basic building blocks for getting and understanding health info.
Exactly.
And then interactive health literacy takes it a step further.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Interactive health literacy is about putting that knowledge to work,
Mm-hmm.
taking what you understand and using it to make positive changes
Right.
in your own life
Yeah.
or even in your community.
Okay.
It's about going from passively understanding something to actively doing something about it.
So that could be like using what you know about healthy eating to plan meals for your family,
Yeah.
or even speaking up for healthier food choices in your school cafeteria.
Exactly. Those are great examples. It's about making a real difference with what you know.
Yeah.
Now, critical health literacy, this is the trickiest one.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about understanding and using health information. It's also about analyzing it really carefully.
So like being a smart consumer of health information,
Yeah,
being able to look beyond the surface and really question if what you're hearing is true,
exactly.
especially these days when there's so much misinformation out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Critical health literacy gives you the power to, challenge the way things are, to
Mhm.
fight for change,
Right.
and to be a really informed advocate for your own health and the health of your community.
It's like leveling up your health awareness
Yeah.
and becoming an active part of creating a healthier future. It sounds like Best Start really puts all 3 of these dimensions front and center in their approach.
They do.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is that they do. And what's really fascinating is that Best Start doesn't just teach about health literacy. It's like they model it in action,
Oh, interesting.
The program itself is set up to help future teachers become health advocates. They use their knowledge and skills to make real positive change in their schools and communities.
So it's like a ripple effect,
Yeah.
equipping these educators with health literacy so they can pass it on to their students. And then eventually it impacts the health of whole communities.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful idea.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you say this focus on health literacy also kind of fits in with some of the bigger changes in education?
Oh, absolutely.
Like this move toward more collaborative and community-focused approaches?
Definitely, this focus on health literacy shows us that we need a new kind of educator.
Yeah.
Someone who knows their subject matter, but is also really connected to the community they're working in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's where these partnerships are so important.
Mm-hmm.
They give future teachers real-world opportunities,
Mhm.
chances to get involved and deal with the real-life issues of health and well-being right there in the community.
It makes you wonder, what other skills will educators need as we move toward this future, where things like collaboration and adaptability are so important?
Well, I think one of the most important skills will be the ability to really connect with people, build relationships with students, families, and community partners.
So it's not just about the teacher and the student anymore.
Right.
It's realizing that learning works best when there's a whole network of support.
Exactly, a web of relationships.
Yeah, and where everyone feels seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
But it also seems like educators are going to need to get comfortable with not always having all the answers,
Oh, absolutely.
especially in a world where information is always changing and the problems we're facing are more and more complex.
You hit the nail on the head there. We need educators who aren't just knowledgeable.
Mm.
They need to be curious, able to adapt, and okay with not knowing everything.
Right.
It's about showing students that learning never stops
Right.
and that being okay with challenges and uncertainty is all part of it.
And what about technology? What do you think its role is in all of this?
Oh, that's huge.
It seems like educators will need to be really good with tech, not just using different tools, but also helping students use the digital world safely and responsibly.
That's a key point. And it made me think of something mentioned in the source material, the Australian National Curriculum's emphasis on a futures perspective.
Futures perspective.
Yeah.
So it's not just about teaching the stuff that's important today,
Right.
but also about helping students develop those adaptable skills that will help them succeed no matter what the future holds.
Exactly. It's about giving them the tools to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, creative innovators, the kind of people who can look at information, figure out what's going on, and come up with new solutions.
I can see how that connects so well with this idea of partnerships, building those links between schools, universities, and communities.
Yeah.
It's realizing we're all in this together.
Right.
And the best way to prepare for an uncertain future is to do it together, using each other's strengths and knowledge.
You said it perfectly. And this futures perspective also made me think about how learning is shaped by our social and cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
The source material really stresses that learning isn't just a solo thing. It's deeply influenced by our social and cultural experiences.
So we need to recognize how things like family, community, and cultural background shape how we learn and see the world,
Yeah.
and then create learning spaces that are really inclusive and celebrate all the different experiences and perspectives that each student brings.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the need for educators to be culturally competent, to be aware of their own biases, and to create learning experiences that are relevant and meaningful for students from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, so moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach and recognizing that education needs to be as diverse as the students it serves.
Right.
This is all so interesting. I'm starting to see a clear picture of the future, where education is less about memorizing facts and more about developing those essential human skills: empathy, critical thinking, collaboration, adaptability.
Yes. It's a future where those hybrid spaces, those partnerships between schools, universities, and communities become the standard. Giving students those rich, real-world learning experiences they need to succeed in a complex and ever-changing world.
You know, we've covered so much today. I'm feeling really inspired by all these ideas. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the importance of lifelong learning for educators.
Yes. That's a crucial point. I think it's one of the most important qualities an educator can have, especially in a world where knowledge is always changing and new challenges are always popping up.
It's like a form of humility, recognizing that we never stop learning. And being open to new ideas is essential for growth, both personally and professionally.
Exactly.
But for those educators listening, what are some practical ways they can embrace this lifelong learning mindset?
Well, I think it starts with being genuinely curious about the world
Yeah.
and being willing to step outside your comfort zone.
So staying engaged,
Mm-hmm.
asking questions,
Yes,
seeking out new experiences and different ways of looking at things.
exactly. It's about making time for professional development, going to conferences, reading books and articles, talking with colleagues. But it's also about being open to learning from unexpected places, from students, from people in the community, from experiences outside the classroom.
I love that. Learning can happen anywhere, anytime. And every interaction can teach us something new.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that making mistakes is all part of learning.
Yeah.
It's about having the courage to try new things,
Yeah.
to experiment, and to learn from those experiences, even when they don't go as planned.
I think that's a powerful message for educators at every stage of their career. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is to never stop learning and growing.
Well said. And I think this connects perfectly with, well said. And I think this connects perfectly with the concept of Best Start being a model for future educational partnerships. It's not just about the specific content they're teaching, but about the values and principles they embody, collaboration, community engagement, and a commitment to lifelong learning. Those are the things that can really change education and get students ready for the complexities of the world they're going to inherit.
It's amazing to think about the ripple effects, If we can give educators these skills and mindsets, imagine the impact they could have on generations of students. It's like planting seeds of change that will keep growing and blossoming long after those students leave the classroom.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It takes back to that big question we've been talking about. What does the future of teaching look like? Based on what we've discussed today, it seems like we need a pretty big change in how we see the role of the educator.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the future of teaching is less about being the one with all the answers and more about being a facilitator, a guide, a co-learner alongside the students. It's about creating those dynamic learning environments where curiosity, critical thinking, and collaboration are not just encouraged, but expected.
Yes. And if we connect this back to the Best Start project, we see a practical example of how this can actually work.
Mm.
It's not just about teaching future educators what to think, but how to think.
Hmm.
How to analyze information, how to solve problems creatively, and how to advocate for positive change in their communities.
So it's about giving them the power to be agents of change,
Exactly.
to see themselves not just as teachers, but as leaders, innovators, and community builders. And that's where this idea of health literacy becomes so vital. It's not just about understanding health information. It's about using that knowledge to actually make a difference in the world.
Exactly. And when we think about those three dimensions of health literacy, functional, interactive, and critical, we can see how they line up perfectly with those skills and qualities we've been talking about. Critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and the ability to navigate complex systems and fight for change.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've gone way beyond just summarizing the source material and uncovered some really insightful connections between educational partnerships, the future of teaching, and the power of health literacy. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
I always love a good brain teaser. What do you have for them?
Well, we talked a lot about the role of educators in creating a healthier future, but I think it's important to remember that making a healthier world isn't just the job of teachers or doctors, it's something we're all involved in.
I completely agree. We all have a role to play.
So my question for our listeners is this. Considering those three dimensions of health literacy, functional, interactive, and critical, what role do you think individuals can play in creating a healthier future for their communities? What can you do, big or small, to make a difference?
That's a great question to leave everyone with. It encourages us to think beyond this deep dive and consider how we can use these ideas in our own lives and communities, because knowledge is most powerful when it's put into action.
Absolutely. So, to our listeners, go out there and be the change you want to see. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.